Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Simple Knit podcast. My name is Eleanor. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Simple Knit Co, and here on YouTube where I hang out and share with you all of the other projects that I have been recently knitting. I know it's been a little while since I've seen you, but I posted on my Instagram stories today that I was going to record an episode, so I have to do it. And the longer I leave it, the more terrifying it is to sit, which is silly, to sit in my bedroom and talk to my phone about what I've been knitting. That's not actually a scary thing to do. So let's just rip off the band-aid and chat about knitting. Pour yourself a drink. I've got a nice cup of tea here. It's a Sunday in Brisbane where I'm from. It has been raining all morning. The sun's starting to come out, so now it's getting a little bit humid. Everyone's put their leaf blowers away, so I have a quiet moment where I can chat to you guys about some very fun knits. Yum yum. Okay, so the first project I will talk to you about was a very nearly finished object, I believe, last time I made a podcast episode, but it is this beauty. This is the Magnolia Bloom sweater by Camilla Vad. I knit this out of Knitpicks Wonderfluff in the Larkspur Heather Colourway. Let me just check. I've actually written notes because I've forgotten how to do any of this. Yes, Larkspur Heather. I used about 5 skeins. I knit the size medium. Look, when you write notes, you actually know what you did. And I am obsessed with this jumper. It is really, really lovely. I knit it basically exactly proportioned to the pattern. I used about 5 skeins of the Knitpicks Wonderfluff to make the size medium, and it turned out really, really great. I think I love this yarn. I've made a jumper out of it before. It is a bulky weight yarn. It's kind of a blown texture, so it is a blend of like alpaca and wool and some acrylic as well. But so it's a bulky weight yarn, but it is incredibly light, which is perfect for the climate that I live in, where it never gets all that cold. The original pattern is written to hold, I think it's 2 strands of fingering weight yarn and 2 strands of mohair together, which would be super warm and cozy, but just not really all that practical for where I live. So yeah, I have worn this so much. The yarn relaxed really beautifully when I blocked it, so it is just really light and comfortable to wear. I believe I used the recommended needle size. I knit this jumper in literally like 10 days, which is unheard of for me. I'm like the world's slowest knitter. So a combination of quite large needles and yeah, just it being super fun to knit. And yeah, I highly recommend this pattern, and I highly recommend this yarn for this pattern as well. I think it's a really great combo, and this color is just so pretty. I'm kind of in a bit of a purple moment at the moment. I think it's just not really my colors in the past, but I'm really enjoying a bit of purple in my life, and I really love this jumper. So yeah, that is my Magnolia Bloom. That, I mean, if it ever stops being 700 degrees, I look forward to wearing it again. So I have a couple of other finished garments to share with you. Let's go for this guy first. So this is the Irene top by Sari Nordlund. And I knit this in the same yarn that the sample is knit in. What am I doing? I knit it in the same yarn that the sample was knit in, because I just saw the sample that Sari had made, and it was so beautiful. It was just completely my style. I loved the color, and I just wanted exactly what she had. So I made exactly what she had. So the yarn I used is Katia Concept Tencel Merino in the color, I didn't write the colorway down. So it's just the one that Sari knit hers out of. But this yarn is really cool. It is, yeah, I think it's mostly Tencel with a little bit of Merino. So it has this amazing drape. And what really drew me to this pattern, I'm not sure if you can see it, is the texture detail. So it's like an all over garter rib top, but then it has these details. Oh, it's all blown out. It's kind of like inspired by a bikini top that I just think is really, really cool. And the shape is lovely. It was an absolute joy to knit. I believe I did it on the recommended needle sizes. I knit the size 4. Having notes is great. Yeah, I used a 3.5mm needle. And oh, the one thing I did do a little bit differently, around the neck and the armholes, I think in the pattern it has you just like pick up and bind off straight away just to finish the edge. That is very boring and not fun for me. So whenever the pattern says to do that, I've done this in patterns before, whenever the pattern says to do that, I just do a round of double crochets around the edge. Double crochets in British terminology, which I believe is a single crochet in American terminology. Why do they make this so difficult for us? But yeah, British double crochet just around the hole, and it gives a very similar effect to like just a row of knitting. So it's just kind of, you can do that in the time it would take just to do the pickup, and then you don't have to do a boring bind off. But other than that, this is a really, really pretty top. The yarn is, even though it has a bit of wool in it, it's not like a warm yarn. It's definitely summer friendly. I did have to order it from overseas. There's none of the Australian stockists of Katia had this yarn, and I think it might have been like a limited run one, because it's even online, there's not that many places selling it. But it's a really nice yarn, so if anyone from Katia is watching, you should definitely stock this yarn more, because it's really nice and I would definitely use it again. But yeah, this top is super cute to wear. I love the color. The details are really fun, and then once you've done that, I think it was top down. Yes, it was top down. And so once you've done these little details, it's just the garter rib texture all over, which was a good amount of thinking. So because you just do the same thing all the time, so you can just watch TV, but still a little bit interesting. So yeah, highly recommend this one too. The construction was really simple. Like if you've never knit a garment before, I think you could definitely knit this. The Irene top, I think I keep calling it the Iris top, but it is definitely the Irene top by Sari Nordlund. So I have one more very recently finished garment to show you. And this is another one that I knit up super, super quickly. So towards the end of last year, I went through my yarn drawers just because they were not in any sort of order or organization. Everything was just like shoved in a drawer and closed, so I didn't have to see it. But like scraps were not contained in anything, they were just loose in a drawer. And it was stressing me out because I really had kind of no idea what was actually in the depths of the yarn drawers. And just by reorganizing them and actually putting all of my scraps like into bags that are like vaguely with like similar size or fiber content or whatever, just bags that kind of made sense to me, I was able to get the yarn to take up like half the amount of space it was taking up. But one thing that I did discover during that very boring anecdote was that, so this yarn is the Knitpicks Wool of the Andes worsted weight in the Colourway Everglade Heather. You may recognize it because last year I used it to make the Deliciosa jumper by Nordlund that I love. I'd originally bought this yarn to make a different jumper. I think originally I had the Svensson by Jared Flood, maybe? Is it Jared Flood? I think it's Jared Flood. It's definitely a Brooklyn tweed pattern. Anyway, the Svensson, which is an all over cabled jumper, I originally had bought this yarn to make that, but then I just never did, and I'd had it for years, blah, blah, blah. But because that was an all over cable jumper, you need a lot of yardage. And when I actually went through my yarn pit, I realized I had like another basically entire garment's worth of this yarn left. So I thought I could sell it. Do I really need another green jumper? And the answer is yes, of course I need another green jumper. It's my favorite color. This yarn is so pretty. So I just went through on Ravelry, looked through my magazines, looked through other patterns that I had favorited and liked over the years, and I found this pattern that I remembered and I absolutely loved. So this is the Tulip Guernsey by Knit Cafe Midori. What's her actual name? Midori Hirose, I think. Anyway, so it's this amazing Guernsey pattern with this beautiful tulip detail on the front, and it's the same on the back. And I had just about the right amount of yardage for the size I wanted to knit. And so I just on a whim, I think on like New Year's Eve or something, I just cast on this jumper. So yes, just on a whim, I bought this pattern and cast it on, and I knit the body of it once again, I think in like a week. I knit it so quickly. It was so fun. Knitting these little tulip cable-y details was super fun. It's the kind of patterning where you just like want to get to the next stitch. It was a tiny bit fiddly, I'm not gonna lie, because these are quite stretched out stitches the way that you make them. I don't even really, it's been a while since I did this, so I don't even quite remember I'm sure if I read the pattern I would remember instantly, but it was a little bit fiddly. But once again, it's on nice big needles. I think, was this on a 5 or a 5.5? 5.5 millimeter needles, so quite a large needle, and I knit the size large, and I knit the body and exactly to pattern. There are a few different neck options, so I did the little funnel neck, super cute. I haven't blocked this yet, so it will relax a little bit, especially look how tiny that little neck hole is. It does fit over my head, I promise. The one thing I did modify was the sleeves. Looking back, I probably did have enough yarn to knit the full length sleeves as per in the pattern. So they're just full length sleeves with like regular, like decreased, you know, tapered, like a sleeve. I think you're familiar with the concept of a sleeve. But I wasn't 100% sure that I'd have enough yarn, and also I didn't really want this for some reason. Just in my mind's eye, when I saw myself wearing this jumper, it didn't have long sleeves. So all I did was I picked up and did, there's a bit of sleeve cap shaping. I did that as per the pattern, and then I just knit the sleeve until it measured 20 centimeters on the underarm side, and then I just did the rib as per the pattern as well. So it's a nice length as it is. I think it comes like just past my elbow-ish here. It will probably grow a little bit when I block it, but they'll just be nice, relaxed, kind of 3/4 length sleeves, which I think looks really nice with the shape of the jumper. And a couple of other people had done something similar in the Ravelry projects. There was a couple of projects and I kind of guesstimated the length of the sleeve. I kind of eyeballed it and used a couple of other project pages, people's notes on Ravelry to get the jumper that I wanted. And I'm so happy with this. Even though it is, I already have a jumper in this exact color, it's quite different, like quite a different shape, quite a different feel. I love the color green, so I don't think you can ever have too many jumpers in your favorite color. So I'm just thrilled. And this was also like a project that kind of, I mean, not that I had fallen out of love with knitting, or I was just feeling a bit uninspired with my knitting, and I just like this project that was just completely on a whim, not planned. I hadn't bought this yarn for this project. I hadn't planned on knitting this jumper. I hadn't planned on knitting a jumper in the middle of summer, but just it felt like a project where I just was completely just doing what I felt like doing, which is what your hobbies should be. I think you should just be doing what you feel like doing rather than putting pressure on yourself or not pressure on yourself, but yeah, making it feel like serious or like a job. I kind of made knitting feel like it had to be really intentional and everything had to be really thoughtful, and it had to be something that, yeah, was just like very rigid and organized in my mind, which is silly. This is a fun hobby that I do because it brings me joy. So I should just do whatever I feel like obviously within reason. Like, I'm not setting people's houses on fire, I'm just knitting. Like, once again, the consequences really aren't that serious. It's just knitting. So not that I, like, as I said, I didn't fall out of love with knitting, but just kind of the process of just spontaneously picking up this project, just doing something that I just wanted to do and that was not logical or planned, but just brought me so much happiness, kind of reminded me what I actually like about this hobby and the like myriad of patterns and yarns and things that we have available to us, that you can just kind of do whatever you want, and I'm allowed to do whatever I want because I'm an adult and this is my hobby. So yeah, that's kind of refreshed my perspective on my craft. And yeah, it was just a genuinely super joyful experience. This pattern's great. Highly, highly recommend it. There are so many beautiful versions that people have made. If you check the hashtag or if you check on Ravelry, even Midori herself, she has made ones like in a lighter weight yarn that's kind of like beautiful and like gossamer drapey. So yeah, there's so many different options. It's a gorgeous pattern. Yeah, highly recommend the Tulip Guernsey, and also highly recommend just knitting whatever the heck you feel like knitting. So now I will share with you some of my works in progress. This isn't all the things I have on the needles at the moment. I've kind of gone a little bit, I do have a few other things cast on lying around, but I don't want to be here for like an hour talking to you. So I will just share a couple of the projects that I'm working on. This one is like almost done. Like, if I'd really wanted to, I could have got this finished. And it's going to be super hard to show you. So this is the Flying Home top by Alnur Berkimbayeva, who is Mama's Teddy Bear Designs on Instagram. And this top is so cool. So you kind of knit it, you knit it sideways, and then you do these really cool, can you see? I did knit it in black, which makes it really hard to show, but these really cool gathered details that create this V on the front of the garment. So it is super lovely. As I said, not going to be great for showing you because I did knit it in black. I loved the structure and the design of it when I saw this on Alnur's Instagram, and then a couple of the testers had made it in like black and navy, and I thought it just looked really cool having this quite strong, like quite graphic construction detail in a really dark color. Now this yarn does attract every single bit of dust in the universe. I have used this yarn before. It is the Knitpicks Lindy chain yarn in the colorway black. It is a cotton and linen blend. It's 70% linen, 30% cotton, and it's kind of a chain construction. You're not gonna, I don't know why I'm showing you, you're not going to be able to see anything, but it is a chain construction. I've used it for a few garments before and I really like this yarn, and it's a really nice price point as well for like a what are they, like a plant fiber for a plant fiber yarn. And yeah, I really love this top. It was a bit annoying because you can only really work on it during the day. I mean, I'm knitting it in the summer, so I had plenty of daylight hours to knit on it, but knitting with black is not the most fun. Let me see, did I write anything down for this one? No. So I'm knitting the third size of this pattern and on a 3.5mm needle. And I'm almost done. So I have changed the construction slightly. You kind of, when you work it as per the pattern, you work the front piece and then the back piece and then seam it together. But the idea of seaming black yarn made me want to gently walk into the sea. So I already had to, because you work the front, you work from each outside. I don't know why I keep like propping these garments on myself so I can talk about them. It's a bit weird and not something I would like to continue on this highly professional YouTube channel. But what you do when you knit the front pieces is you knit from the outside to the center and then put this side on hold, then from the outside to the center on the other side, and then you graft the front together with Kitchener stitch, which Kitchener stitch in black yarn was already a little bit of, like, not the worst thing that I've ever had to do, but like I wasn't like stoked to do it for 700 more stitches. Not, you know what I mean. So anyway, the idea of having to do mattress stitch, which is already not my favorite thing to do, if I can avoid mattress stitch or most seaming. I love a crocheted seam. The top to top seaming method that Brooklyn Tweed have on their website for like shoulders, I quite enjoy that. But in general, if I can avoid it, if I can somehow do something else to avoid a mattress stitch style seam, I will avoid it. So what I did for the back piece is I just picked up the stitches along the side, and then when I get to, and just from picking up the stitches, you still do get a nice little seam. And from the sides of the seam, I think I'll be able to replicate about the same thickness by doing a 3 needle bind off. So I don't have much longer to go, too many more decreases to go here. And then I will pick up stitches again along this other side edge. I didn't, the cast on I did a regular German twisted cast on, I think. Anyway, it's quite easy to pick up stitches from that cast on, so I would just pick up those stitches and then seam it together with a 3 needle bind off, which may seem to some people like a little bit more fuss than just doing a seam, but for me it is less fuss than just doing a seam. And then all I have to do is the little shoulder straps and I'm done. So this is very, very nearly done. Luckily there'll still be plenty of hot weather to wear this for, but I'm really psyched. I think it's so pretty. The details is really cool because it's quite like graphic. Even though it's black, you can still kind of see the detail, probably not on camera, but in real life. Oh, that's blown out, but you get the idea. So yeah, this is a great pattern, highly recommend. Yeah, the flying home top. So what will I talk to you about next? I do have also 2 little beanies on the needle, so maybe I'll just share those with you. Wow. This first one is the Hipster hat by Petite Knit. I've knit this hat before. It's great, it's just a 2x2 ribbed beanie. I think I'm knitting the middle size. I don't know, but it's just a 2x2 rib, which looks ridiculous when it is not blocked and not worn. I promise this does fit on an adult human's head, but the exciting thing about this is the yarn that I've used. So this yarn was the Day 25 full skein from my yarn advent calendar. Last year I got my first ever yarn advent calendar. I've kind of never really seen one that I was particularly like spoke to me. This one was from Moonrise Yarn Co. Sam is a dyer out of New Zealand, and the theme of it was dark summer, and I love kind of the colors that Sam dyes are really lovely, and just the she had a mood board on Pinterest for her inspiration for the calendar, and that just really spoke to me. And when they went on sale last year, I felt like treating myself, so I did. I probably won't get one every year because having all the mini skeins is, I have plans for them all, but just like them being in my house is giving me anxiety. So even though they have projects that they're going to go towards, I can't imagine, like, it's going to take me a while to knit them up, and the thought of bringing like 24 more into my home is a little bit anxiety inducing. But yeah, the full skein, she just called it Dark Summer. It's this beautiful like pale purple base with these amazing rainbow colored speckles. They kind of remind me of like vintage garden lights. It's so pretty, and it's knitting up really cool. It's almost the way that the speckles are pulling together at this gauge and in this pattern almost gives like a striped, like a rainbow striped effect from a distance. Yeah, I'm just loving it, and it's really fun to work on because yeah, every stitch is like a different color. It's super fun. So that is the hipster hat. I've knit, as I said, I've knit this pattern before. It's just a really great standard 2x2 ribbed hat pattern, nothing revolutionary, but the decreases are really nice, which, as you know, is my one thing that I like in a hat, is well constructed decreases. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty good hat pattern, but there are plenty of 2x2 rib hat patterns out there, so just knit the one that you enjoy. Now this one is another hat pattern that I have knit before. I just started this yesterday maybe. This is the Quadri hat by Michelle Wang. It's an oldie, a classic. As I said, I have knit this before in a dark grey colour, but I really wanted to try this yarn. So this is de Rerum Natura in the Poivre Blanc colourway. It's like a French yarn that a lot of European podcasters and knitters use, and I found a yarn shop in Australia that carried it, and they were also the only yarn shop that had this particular size circular needles that I needed to do a sleeve. So to justify having to buy needles and get them shipped halfway across the country, I figured I would get a skein of yarn as well. And no, wait, which size base is this? I think this is the Gilliatt base, which is the worsted weight, and it's just this pretty creamy white color, and I figured one skein would be good for a hat. And I absolutely love this Quadri pattern. I've wanted to re-knit this hat just because the pattern is so fun to knit. So yeah, I just started this yesterday. I love the way that the cables kind of grow out of the ribbing. And then the whole hat, it is charted and written instructions, so you can use whichever method you prefer, and it's just one chart and all of the decreases are on the chart as well. So you just cast on and then just knit the chart and then you're done. So this is another kind of spontaneous cast on. I was happy for this yarn to sit in my cupboard for a while. You're always going to knit another hat, but yeah, I just really wanted to knit this pattern. I'm loving a cable at the moment, loving a thicker yarn. So yeah, that is the Quadri hat. So that's a pretty good cross section of what I have been working on, what I am working on at the moment. Please let me know in the comments what you're knitting at the moment. Do you have any big knitting plans for 2022? At the end of last year, I actually, because I was feeling like a little bit uninspired, didn't really know what to cast on, was just feeling a bit blah about crafting in general, but I went through kind of my collection of magazines, went through Ravelry, all of these patterns that I've wanted to knit for a long time, and yeah, things that I wanted to knit that looked really fun. I got the yarn for all of those patterns as well, because I don't really like having a big stash. It kind of stresses me out, and it stresses me out to buy yarn not having a purpose for it. But then the flip side of that is that when I would finish a project, I wouldn't really have anything to cast on right away. I'd have to decide what I wanted to do and then buy the yarn, which is not a bad way to do things. But if you're just kind of like, oh, I'm in the mood for something different, there's not something different like right in front of you, which is, I guess, the joy of like having a stash of yarn to dive into, is that you have a bit of flexibility for whatever you're feeling in the moment. You can just do the thing that you feel like doing. So I have a whole list of patterns that I really want to knit. They're in my Ravelry queue if you're interested. And I have the yarn that I need to make those. all ready to go. So when I'm ready, when I finish a project, if I'm halfway through a project and I'm a bit bored, I can just cast on something else and I've got everything ready to go. And also then all the yarn that I have has a plan. And yeah, I'm actually really excited for this year of crafting. So all of those things I'll just share with you as I cast them on as the time comes. But yeah, what are you making? Do you have any big plans for this year? How do you like to plan your crafting life? I don't like to think of myself as a super like organized, like stick to the rules person, but I do like to have some guidelines in place for myself, just so that Picasso always said that like restriction is the key to creative freedom, which is clearly not his wording, but that was the vibe he was going for. At least my poetry lecturer told me that anyway. So yeah, do you have any big knitting plans for 2022? Do you have anyone that's particularly inspiring you at the moment? I'm also kind of a little bit burnt out on watching podcasts, which is very hypocritical for someone who is sitting talking at her phone. And one of the main reasons is a lot of the podcasts that I have watched for a while, their episodes are just too long. They're just too long. I'm sorry. Regardless of how cute and charming you are, I can't. If your episode is an hour long, that's too much. I know I have a couple of really long episodes too, so like I'm a complete hypocrite, whatever. But if you have any podcasts that you watch that are like 40 minutes or less per episode, I'd love to get some new crafters in my life, so please leave those below as well. Just let me know how you're going. I've missed you guys. Yeah, it was a very weird end to the year and start to the new year, but I feel like I'm kind of getting myself back regulated a bit more again. I'm going to try and have a bit more of a schedule to my life, so I can schedule podcast recording times into my life to be a bit more consistent, that's a good word. So yeah, I hope you're all really well. I hope your crafting is bringing you joy and satisfaction. I hope that you and your families are safe and healthy, and I will talk to you very soon. Thank you. Bye.